It's not who gets in the first word that counts, but who gets in the last word. Now, the guys that always get in the last word, brothers Tom and Dave.
And welcome to the last word, except that little opening there is not quite true today. You're not going to have brothers Tom and Dave. You're going to have little brother Dave doing the show today because big brother Tom, at this point in time, is in a sealed tube, probably about 30,000 feet above the air, coming back from the great state of Georgia because he had to move his son. My son's a captain in the U.S. Army. Was helping him move from Colorado to Fort Benning. So he is coming back in the air from there. So today, I am in control. Actually, that's just a cover story. Actually, there was a coup, and I decided to take over and kick him out. So that being the case, with me being totally in control of the show today, welcome to our show here on The Last Word. Hope that we're going to open up your week and have a little fun over here today, talking about politics, talking about the law, talking about all the craziness that is going on in the United States today. And speaking of craziness, since we're going to be talking ultimately about things that have taken place in politics, what occurred with Super Tuesday and all this stuff that's going back and forth in the presidency and the local elections, etc., I would like to put you in the mood to think about what politicians do in their free time. And sometimes politicians and lawmakers, while we've had some on the program, we hold many in high esteem. A lot of them are hardworking, no doubt about it. There are some things that have happened throughout history, particularly here in our great state of Illinois, where they have just passed dumb laws. So, to get your blood up in terms of motivating you to go out to vote and to look at what your candidate supports, let's look at some of the dumb laws that are, as far as I know, are still presently on the books in these various localities and maybe in state statutes and also in some various localities of the great state of Illinois. Now, for you people living up in Zion, or for you people who are going to be driving through Zion, Illinois, you have to understand that. And, if you have a really good-looking woman, think about this. This is your opportunity. A man can force any single woman to marry him if he discovers her picking her nose while sitting in a car at traffic lights. So, if you are really desperate and you are looking for a woman, cruise around Zion. And if you see that happening, I would immediately summon an officer and summon a witness and point out to say that girl, according to law here in Zion, has to marry me. Now, let's see what else we have. Let's see location, Illinois, which must mean somewhere in the great Illinois statutes this exists. All bachelors should be called master, not Mr., when addressed by their female counterparts. So gentlemen, when you go home, I suggest that you talk to your wife and say, from now on, in accordance with Illinois statute, remember, you have nothing to do with this. This is not your fault. You want to be a good, law-abiding citizen. And I'm sure that your wife wants to be a good, law-abiding citizen, too. So, excuse me, this is for bachelors only. I'm sorry. Once you're married, this waives. I got to get that straight over here. But make sure that next time you walk into work tomorrow and say that you can't be hit with a sexual harassment suit because you're just following Illinois law, which says that you have to be addressed as master by your female counterpart at the office. So tough luck, ladies. That's what the law says. Now, if you are in Peoria, Illinois, be careful about what you're doing when you have your son playing basketball, because basketball hoops may not be installed on a driveway in Peoria, Illinois. Now, here's one that there's some here that are just a little tough to enforce, but they're on the books. Now, except maybe if you're a beekeeper. Now, if you're a beekeeper and you have bees and your job is to get them to harvest honey, I would say that in Kirkland, Illinois, is not a good place to be a beekeeper, because bees are not allowed to fly over the village or through any of Kirkland's streets. So I don't know quite how that one's enforceable, except unless you're a beekeeper and you decide to let your bees go through Kirkland, Illinois. And with all that's going on with the discussion of how religion is interplaying into politics and the question of separation of church and state, in the state of Illinois, it is illegal and it is a criminal offense to believe in more than three gods. Now, I don't know if that applies to the Trinity. For those of us who are Christian, particularly I'm Catholic, and we believe in God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, of course, that's one God in three persons, for those of you who may not understand Christian theology. So we may get away with the fact that we're only believing in one God. If you are in Evanston, Illinois, do not go to a bowling alley because bowling is forbidden. If you are in Chicago and your house is on fire, immediately stop eating any food. And the reason you will stop eating any food is not because the house is on fire and you have to get out and play safe. You have to leave because eating in a place that is on fire in the great city of Chicago is against the law. And if you are in Cicero, now we know that Cicero has a rather colorful history, shall we say. One time when Al Capone was chased out of Chicago, he made his headquarters in Cicero. Now, I don't know if this law was passed because Al Capone simply didn't like people humming on the streets on Sunday. Maybe it interfered with his Sunday sleepovers after partying on Saturday night. But do not, I repeat, do not walk on a public street in Cicero, Illinois, and hum, because humming on public streets on Sunday is prohibited. Now that, let's see, Riverside. How about let's go to Molina, Molina, Illinois. You are not to ice skate, and I don't even know how you would do this, but it's a law. You are not to ice skate at the Riverside Pond during the months of June and August. Ice skating on any ponds in Riverside, in Molina, Illinois, is forbidden. And heaven help you if you are in Normal, Illinois, and you decide to make a face at a dog, because it is against the law to make faces at dogs in Normal, Illinois. Now, that does call to question why the name of that city is Normal, Illinois. So be careful if you're there. It is illegal in somewhere in the Illinois Driver's Code, and that would defer to my brother on this, being more of the criminal defense lawyer. Haven't had an opportunity to ask him about this yet. But somewhere in the state of Illinois, or in the Illinois, it is illegal to drive a car without a steering wheel. Now, don't ask me how you can do it without it, but it's illegal. So don't do it. And for God's sakes, in the great state of Illinois, do not give your dog whiskey. Now, here is one that you're going to enjoy. Here is one I'd like to see some brave person pull this one off. Because we've been talking a lot about what's been illegal. Let's talk about something that is legal in Chicago, Illinois. It is legal to protest naked in front of City Hall as long as you are under 17 years of age and have legal permits. So I'm putting a challenge out to any of you out there who want to talk to any of your sons or daughters who are under 17 years of age to go down to City Hall and ask for that permit so that you can get starbuck naked in front of City Hall in Chicago and go there on LaSalle Street and protest. Doesn't say what you have to protest, but you can protest naked in front of City Hall as long as you have that permit. And for those of us for those of you out there who are male chauvinists, you're going to like this one. Again, somewhere buried in the laws of the great state of Illinois, it is against the law for a woman to strike a man across the left cheek with a glove. So make sure if you're going to rile your honey up, or if you get into an argument with her, for God's sakes, buy her a pair of gloves, and make sure that she's wearing gloves and that she puts her gloves on, so that you can call the police on that. And what do we have? It is illegal in Galesburg, for you people out in Galesburg, or for friends that you have out in Galesburg. It is legal to burn bird feathers. So let's not politically. I don't know if that's the EPA brought that up or something, but these are just a few of the more interesting laws. We're going to finish out the first part of the show here in a few seconds with let's see, we have two more funny laws over here. It is against the law in Horner, Illinois, to use a slingshot unless you are a law enforcement officer. So you can't play David or Goliath. And it is illegal somewhere throughout the state of Illinois for barbers to use their fingers to apply shaving cream to a customer's face. So, for all you law-abiding citizens, this has been a public service of the last word in regards to what you can and cannot do in the great state of Illinois. And we'll be back after this break to maybe discuss some real laws and some real situations here at WIND.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Welcome back here to The Last Word with Little Brother Dave without Big Brother Tom, who is, I said, in a sealed tube somewhere at 15,000, 20,000, or 30,000 feet in the air. And one thing that, if Tom was here, that he would bring up about flying is that each of his three children who have been, are in, or one is in the Army Reserves, you have to do as part of your Army training, is you have to jump out of an airplane at least once. And my brother has this philosophy that it's just plain wrong to jump out of perfectly good mechanically operating airplanes when there's nothing wrong with them. And that's a little personal bias that he has against that. But speaking of airplanes, you know what I was watching last night? I was watching on one of the cable channels, Air Force One. Now, for those of you who, I'm sure that you remember, that was the one with Harrison Ford where Air Force One gets taken over by some Russian terrorists. They want to bring the old communist, the old Soviet Union back. And Harrison Ford plays president, and he's the hero, and he almost single-handedly recaptures the plane. And there are some, good fight scenes where Harrison Ford has got to, as president of the United States, he fires off his gun, and he's dangling midair as they're trying to, at the end, save his life and reel him in just before Air Force One crashes. I don't know the answer to this question, but it's something I'd like you to think about. Can you imagine Obama or any one of the other presidential candidates doing what Harrison Ford did on Air Force One? I mean, can you imagine Obama with a machine gun in the belly of Air Force One, taking on some of those terrorists, or doing anything that Harrison Ford did? If you'd like to, why don't you send us an email at thelastword@yahoo.com. And I'd like to know, I'd like to take a little informal poll here. If you had to pick who would be the presidential candidate, and it has to be a presidential candidate, not somebody who's of the four of the five that are officially in the race, who in your mind would best replace Harrison Ford on Air Force One and be able to do all the things that Harrison Ford did? Because I have to say, you people know that Tom and I are Republican committeemen, and we're Republican all the way. But even I have to have a few chuckles at the idea of Newt Gingrich dangling on that one hook outside Air Force One as they're reeling him into the other plane. And that brings us to a mind trap question, which I will defer. I guess I have to be my brother's keeper because he's not here. So I will do that which Tom normally does. You all know our little mind trap questionnaire where we shamelessly try to keep you into the show. If we're boring you with anything else, at least maybe with mind trap, we can keep you with us. Now, the mind trap question for today is, speaking of Air Force One, every time since the 50s when they officially decided to call Air Force One to officially designate that any plane with the president aboard is Air Force One, every time Air Force One has taken off, it has landed with the president of the United States aboard. It has landed with the president of the United States aboard, except once. One time, Air Force One took off, and when it landed, it was not Air Force One. It took off with the President of the United States as Air Force One, but when it landed, it was not Air Force One. So sometime later on in the show, I'm going to give you the answer as to when and how that particular issue occurred. And speaking of our dear president and the president's race, we just had Super Tuesday get over here, and it looks like Mitt Romney is ahead in the delegate count. But question that I have over here is between Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich. Does anybody out there, again, we'd like to take a little bit of poll over here, and you can send in your thoughts to us at thelastword@yahoo.com. Is it futile anymore for anyone else but Mitt Romney to remain in the race? Or is this going to be an attempt by Santorum and Gingrich to try to send this into a brokered convention? Now, a brokered convention is probably something that a lot of people haven't even heard the term as to what it means. A brokered convention, and I really do not know the last time a brokered convention took place in either the Democratic or the Republican parties. To my knowledge, in recent history, all presidents were nominated on the first ballot. Virtually everyone had enough delegates going into the convention so that they had a guarantee of getting it on the first ballot. But a brokered convention means that when any candidate comes into the convention, they do not have enough delegates. They don't have the majority delegates. They will not be, they cannot be automatically crowned as the presidential candidate. So with that in mind, I am wondering and speculating if Rick Santorum and Newt Gingrich are in this race because they want to force this into a brokered convention. And would a brokered convention be something that would be good for the Republican Party? Because what would happen is you're going to have a first ballot call. And generally, all delegates who are pledged are locked in on the first ballot to vote. So you'll have the first ballot, it'll come along, and then you'll have the official vote, which will not guarantee any candidate. After the first ballot, the rules generally are you are released from your pledge to that particular candidate, and then the wheeling and dealing starts. So if we have a candidate like Mitt Romney who would not be able to come in to the convention and be able to pull it off and get elected before the convention starts, would it be better for the Republican Party to go to someone else? And it wouldn't even have to be someone from the present running who are presently candidates. The convention at that point in time is free to pick anybody they want. If somebody wants to call on a draft, if somebody would want to call on a Mark Rubio or a Chris Christie and say, look, none of these guys are good enough, we want to bring you in, would that be something that would be good or bad for the Republican Party to bring in a fresh face at that time? But what I am getting at is, as time is going on over here, I think in the delegate counts, you're definitely going to have Mitt Romney with the most delegates. You're not going to have Rick Santorum. You're not going to have Newt Gingrich. You're definitely not going to have Ron Paul have enough of the majority of the delegates to be able to push it over the top, unless something drastic happens and something untold. And who knows, something like that could happen. I personally believe that if Santorum would have gone ahead and not made comments about, despite his personal views, and he's I think he's a devout Catholic. I'm a devout Catholic too, and I have to say that when it comes to politics, you sometimes do have to watch your mouth. As a matter of fact, there was one time, speaking of religious ideas and religious concepts, that for some of you youngins in the show over here, that back in 1976, when Jimmy Carter was running for president of the United States, and he was a Christian minister, I believe, or a Christian deacon. He was some way affiliated with his church in that matter. He decided to come out and said, yes, I have had lust in my heart for other women, despite being married, and confessed to that. Well, the first Mayor Daley, Richard I, was asked about that. And Richard J. Daley came in from a boating trip. And this was sometime in September of 76. He came in off of Lake Michigan, and the reporters were there to ask him what he thought of Jimmy Carter's comment. And Daley goes, why don't you ask the fish? Because he brought in the line of the fish that he caught. Why don't you ask the fish what they think of Jimmy Carter's comment? So reporters play along and they go, okay, fine. Look at the fish and go, what do you think of what Jimmy Carter said about having lust in his heart? And Daley looked down at him and he says, they say if they didn't open their mouths, they wouldn't have gotten caught. So a certain caveat to some of our candidates out there. That's one of my favorite political fish stories. If you don't open your mouth on certain things, you won't get caught. And I just like to say to our various candidates out there, watch what you say. You have to say it all, because that comment about throwing up as to what JFK said, I think that did Santorum in. I think Santorum could have even taken Ohio if a comment like that wasn't made. He's making himself out to be too radical. And let's face it, no matter what's been going on, there have been two things that have been really the top issues in the United States in the last 2 years, in the last decade, 15 years. The economy, stupid, and also our involvement in foreign entanglements. Nice to know that candidates are going to take a stand on conservative issues, social issues. Great that they do it, but let's put our priorities in first thing first. And we'll be back here after the news, weather, and traffic on WIND on the Last Word.
They're lawyers, so you know they'll always have the last word. Here's Tom and Dave.
That's correct. Welcome back to the Last Word. Dave Laz here. Little Brother Dave without Big Brother Tom. And boy, am I having fun here. I never know I had so much fun without my brother present. No. We shouldn't be like that. But I'd also like to let you know that we were originally going to have State Senator Kirk Dillard, who is the present incumbent state senator in the 24th District of Illinois. He was to be our guest today, spend a few minutes with us. But my understanding is that he who is, as far as I'm concerned, I've known Kirk for a number of years, one of the hardest working senators in Illinois, and Tom and I strongly endorse him for you people out in the 24th Senatorial District to be reelected for state senator. He is presently on the Senate floor doing what he does best, senatoring, and working hard for the people of the state of Illinois. Just to let you know, Kurt has received about every major endorsement of virtually every major paper. The Tribune endorsed him. The Daily Herald endorsed him for re-election for state senator. Endorsed by Dan Cronin, head of the DuPage County government. Received endorsements left and right, and we strongly suggest that you people out in the 24th District and Elmhurst, Westmont, Clarendon Hills, parts of Downers Grove, Lombard, that you definitely do vote for Kirk Dillard for state senate. With that endorsement out of the way, I'm going to go to one part that has had my blood boiling this week. The more I look at it and the more I'm wondering about the way that the future of the country is going and why I am taking an anybody but Obama stance in terms of who we want for president. And that is this Sandra Fluke deal. Now, I find it rather interesting that her last name is a Fluke, because I hardly think that it was a fluke that she was called before an informal commission, investigative commission set up by Democrats regarding the issue of having you and me, through our insurance premiums, pay for birth control. Now, let's be practical. Most people take birth control because they want to have recreational sex. They want to have sex just for fun and avoid the procreation part. They don't take it for health reasons. It is just for that purpose. And I am still fuming over the idea that someone, particularly someone who is at a Catholic law school, Georgetown University, is going to come on the air and is going to come before a commission and is going to say, I want you to pay for my fun. I want you to pay so that I can have recreational sex. You pay for it. Now, I'm sure that you all heard the big hullabaloo about Rush Limbaugh and his comments about her. I'm not here to get into that. I am here merely to talk about what on earth is going on in this country with more people asking for things to be paid for by other people. And I'm not talking here, obviously, about needs. I'm not talking about money needed to pay for a homeless shelter, pay to put somebody up in food, shelter, and clothing. I'm talking about recreational needs. Because how about those of you who like to go to amusement parks? Let's go to Great America. Love roller coasters. Gives me a thrill. Recreational to me. Well, if you're going to pay for her to have fun in a recreational manner, how about paying me to have fun so I can go on all those roller coasters at Great America? Or anybody else who wants to go on those roller coasters in Great America. That's fun to me. I don't see why I can't get the government to pay for it. But the really thing that comes to mind is that, it was after World War II that the idea of employers offering health insurance benefits came into being. And the reason that it originally started was because those idea was to have fringe benefits. They were to be offered for the purpose of trying to coerce workers to come and join that particular, get a particular job with a particular employer. It may be surprising to many of you out there, but there is no constitutional right to health insurance. Period. End. There is no constitutional right to so that can force an employer to offer you health insurance at all. That is being offered as a fringe benefit to entice a worker to stay and come to work with you. So it would seem rather logical to me that if I'm the employer, I'm offering this to you as a fringe benefit, guess what? I get to pick what I want to offer in my benefits plan to you. That's something that I am trying to do to entice you to work for me. Now, guess what? If you don't like it and you think that my plan sucks and you think that I am offering you a lousy benefits package, guess what you can do? You can go work for somebody else. And you can go sign somewhere where they are offering you a benefits package with what they want. But is this what it's coming down to? And this is what I believe the election is going to come down to in November. Do you want to vote for a society that has suddenly decided that we are going to be a society of entitlements, or are we going to be a society of individual responsibility and personal liberty? See you on the other side.
Didn't get enough of your family for the holidays? Here's two brothers you can always count on for the last word. Tom and Dave.
Okay, welcome back here to the last word, except this particular show, you're going to only be able to count on one brother. But counting on one brother is better than counting on no brothers, especially if I'm the brother that you're counting on. And I'm going to continue a little bit here with my tirade on the Sandra Fluke issue that came up with the issue of entitlements. I don't know if any of you have seen in recent days that there was I forget what state that she was in. I don't know if it was Ohio or Pennsylvania, but a woman won $1 million from the state lottery. Now, after you take off taxes, and my understanding, as far as I know, is that when you get money from the lottery, as she correctly stated, she took, because she took it in a lump sum. And okay, I'm not too much into why. I think it's because if they pay it out over a period of time, they can invest it as an annuity, and basically they're paying you the $1 million on interest. But if you're going to take a lump sum on a lottery payment, you're not going to get the actual amount. You're going to get a deducted amount for that reason. So she winds up with $700,000 in her pocket. Not a bad sum. And I guess on top of that, she had to pay $200,000. Now, she paid $200,000 in income tax because lottery earnings or any earnings from prizes are deemed to be income. So next time that you decide to go on Jeopardy or any of those shows in particular, and you are going to win a car, remember, behind door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, and you wind up winning that $25,000, $30,000 car, or even that $40,000 Chevy Volt, God forbid that they ever offer that as a prize, you are going to have to pay income tax on your earnings. And you are going to wind up paying because they're going to say, okay, that car is worth $25,000, $35,000, $40,000. That's income to you. So if you ever go on one of those shows, little word of warning, little advice, take the cash, because then you don't have to worry about coming up with the income. So she comes along and she pays $200,000 and admits and says, well, I had to pay taxes on it. It's not a property tax. It's not an estate tax. It's an income tax. Then she is still going out, and apparently the laws allow for her to still collect food stamps and to still use food stamps. That's right. She can still use them. And she says, when asked after she has these earnings, because if you take away the $300,000 from taking it as a lump sum, take away the $200,000 that was taken away in taxes, she's got $500,000 left. $500,000 dineros, $500,000. And she has to say, well, you know what? Guess what? It's not income. This is not income to me. I'm just going to have this $500,000. I'm just going to have this $500,000, and I'm not working. So therefore, because I'm not working, I am entitled to go and get food stamps. Now, I realize that none of us are perfect, that when laws are passed, and you can't, there's the law of unintended consequences when you pass laws, and that's why I have to say to our lawmakers, be careful for what you ask for what you pass. And I think we'll get into that briefly in the next segment regarding the Health and Human Services and the religious liberty issue. Be careful what you support and for what you ask for, because you might get it. I'm sure that there was no intention to let something like this happen. But apparently, the way the law is written, she's entitled to the money. But on a personal note, I think she should be ashamed of herself. Absolutely ashamed to be able to say that I've got $500,000 and I am going to go ahead, and because I am legally entitled to it, I am going to take the food stamps and I am going to continue to get and use food stamps. This is what I mean about the entitlement society in Illinois, and not just in Illinois, but across the nation. Is that the society that you want to happen here in this country? We are creeping more and more toward it. When you talk about here, she doesn't have to take the food stamps. She's got $500,000. She could stand up and say, you know what? I got $500,000 in the bank. I don't need food. Am I entitled to them? Does the law and the loopholes allow for it? Yes, they do. But I've got the money. I am not going to go on the government dole. So are we become a society where entitlement has grown to such an extent that people have no shame? And that's what's missing in our society, I assert. We are missing a lack of collective shame for not having and taking personal responsibility when we can and when we have the opportunity. And if there ever was a poster child for a situation that negatively shows how this society has changed incrementally over the years, this is a poster child for what's going on in today's society regarding the entitlement concept, that just because I'm entitled to it, I will take it. If the government wants to offer me money, I will take it. Do I need it? I may not need it, but I will take it. So I hope in this particular instance I am stirring up your blood out there and getting you to look more into who the candidates are and which party is the party of real freedom and personal responsibility, and who is the party of the nanny state and the party of entitlements. And are you willing to stand up and say, no more entitlements, except for those who truly need it, and I'm going to stand up for personal responsibility, and I'm going to stand up for personal freedom. Now, I'll be back with our last segment of The Last Word with Little Brother Dave here on WIND.
Now, back to the show with the brothers that always have the last word, Tom and Dave.
Yeah, welcome back to the last segment of The Last Word as we are coming up upon the 1 o'clock hour here on a beautiful Monday morning, because it's always a beautiful Monday morning when when either a Tom or Dave Laz is on the air. And speaking of that, did you know that apparently some additional Dead Sea Scrolls were recently found? And there's been some clarification of some of the language that was used by Christ in the Bible, when he actually didn't say that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. He did say that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. So not only do we get the last word, we also get the first word. And if you believe that one, yeah, there's still that bridge in Brooklyn that I'd love to sell you for about $25 million. Well, as we close out our segment here on The Last Word and think about my brother being sealed in that tube, helpless, not being able to stop me from saying anything I want about him, even though I'll be my brother's keeper. I'm not going to do the Cain and Abel thing. I'm not going to say I'm not my brother's keeper. I am going to ask, for the people that are listening to here, regarding the HHS mandate regarding carrying and mandating. I'm going to go back to that a little bit on the contraceptive issue. It's an infringement, clearly, on religious liberty. Don't let anybody else change the concept of what we are talking about over here. And I think that this goes hand in hand with the concept of the entitlement society, because whenever you decide that you are entitled to something and that you have a right to get something, you're going to make yourself dependent on the person giving it to you. Suppose that you came up to me and I came up to you and I said to you, you know what? I'm going to give you $100 every day. You have no right to it. You're not entitled to it. I'm just giving it to you out of the goodness of my heart. And I start that today. And I continue doing that and give you $100 a day for, let's say, 3 years. And then at the end of 3 years, I say, well, guess what? I have decided not to give you $100 anymore. You're going to come and say, what are you talking about? How come I'm not getting my $100? Well, wait a minute. Whoa. This is something that I've been giving you clearly out of the generosity of my heart. You're not entitled to it. But wait a second. I've established my whole lifestyle on the basis that you're giving me $100 a day. Well, that was something you decided to do. You could have taken $100 and you could have put it in the bank, but you knew that you were not entitled to it. But you decided to put yourself into a state of dependency on me by me voluntarily giving you that money. So what would you do? Are you going to run up to Congress, run up to the state legislature and say, hey, you know what? We need to pass a law over here that protects me because I'm now in this bad, unfortunate economic circumstance because Dave Laz is not giving me my $100 a day. So we have to pass a law saying that I'm entitled to get $100 a day from Dave Laz. Is that the type of society that you want us to get into? The entitlement society. Because, ladies and gentlemen, every time that you grow a little bit more dependent on the government, you give up some of your liberties. And this time, the government is now trying to move in and force us to give up some of our liberties. So, in particular, the HHS mandate that's coming up over here. Call me biased. I'm Roman Catholic. I'm a faithful Roman Catholic, believe in the teachings of the church. But more so, I also believe in the American Constitutions and the teachings of religious liberty. And I'm a strong and vociferous supporter, at least my brother's not here to correct my English, to go ahead and to ask you to be active in this regards. Tell Kathleen Sebelius, who incidentally has been banned from receiving communion in her particular district because of her stance on this and her stance on abortion. Write to Congress, write to your congressperson, write to the president, and tell them to stop this stuff. Tell them to say that you are not going to give this up, that this is where we're drawing the line in the sand, and we are going to push back, and we are going to push back hard, and that this HHS mandate has got to go. Well, with that in mind, we're going to have next week's guest, Sean Morrison, who is a Republican candidate for Cook County Board of Tax Review. Until then, c'est la vie.